Brandon, appreciate you making some time for us this morning. I know as a Missouri grad, you told me to not rub it in, so I'm going to do my best to do that. I know a lot of Missouri Tiger fans were kind of frustrated and irritated to see Trevin go to Arkansas, and I guess Arkansas fans are wondering what are the Razorbacks, what is this basketball program getting in Brazile?
Yeah, and we kind of knew in Missouri that he was probably going to go somewhere, right? With the firing of Conzo Martin, it seemed inevitable. But then when the news dropped and we saw that tweet from Trevin himself that had the Woo Pig Suey hashtag, that kind of rubbed folks the wrong way. But, that's the way it goes when you're a talented player and you can kind of get to pick your next landing spot. And that's what Trevor Brazile is. He was probably Mizzou's most dynamic player last year. Even as a freshman, you could see the signs that with a little bit of growth, he could turn into something special. He was kind of asked to maybe be a little bit more of a rim protector, a little bit of a power forward guy, whereas I think he can develop to have a little bit more of a dynamic game, be able to move out a little bit and make some shots, but he can absolutely dunk the basketball, averaged close to 2 blocks per game, so that's going to be something that I think Arkansas fans will really get behind. And so I think he's a guy that's a work in progress, but there's a lot of raw skills there, and I think Hogs fans are really going to like what they see from him.
Now, Brendan, you mentioned kind of the mood of Missouri fans, and I feel like the football rivalry has been forced to a certain degree, but the basketball one, Mike Anderson, Frank Haith, Mike leaving Missouri for Arkansas, some back and forth there, and this and some other things that have occurred. Do you see this being amped up a little bit, the rivalry basketball-wise between the Tigers and the Razorbacks?
I really do, especially in the case of Missouri maybe being able to carry their end of the bargain in this thing. Arkansas is obviously having some really good seasons, and Eric Musselman is really starting to put things together down there in Fayetteville. And so I think to really get the rivalry off the ground truly, Missouri's going to have to be able to carry its end of the bargain by winning some more games and being more competitive in the SEC. Hopefully with Dennis Gates, they're able to do that. But, yeah, I kind of agree with you from a football perspective. It's been kind of a work in progress. But then again, my co-host said yesterday that he had some more disdain for Arkansas than maybe I thought. So I think it's definitely growing, and it's getting there. And certainly this move, when Trevin comes to Columbia, Missouri the next time, that's only going to add some intensity to the fire.
And I don't expect Arkansas to replace Kansas on the rivalry order for Missouri, but,
right.
but when the name Razorbacks or Arkansas Razorback fans, or it just comes up in conversation at a barbershop or a coffee shop, what is the reaction? How do people in Missouri feel about the Razorbacks?
I think it kind of depends on the person, but you certainly have the diehard fans who certainly are warming up to the idea of adding some hatred to that. And I think you mentioned the Mike Anderson thing, and that certainly helped kind of get things off the ground. And that is a border rivalry, the battle line, obviously. So it doesn't have quite the history of a Mizzou, Kansas at this point in time, like you guys said. But I certainly think there is a little bit of disdain there, and it just kind of, that's a program that gets under your skin. And for me, being a guy that covers the Cardinals as well, I interact with a lot of fans who are Arkansas fans and St. Louis Cardinals fans. Right. And so those guys certainly love to rub it in on me when Arkansas is able to put one over on Missouri like they did yesterday. So it's definitely getting there, guys. It really is.
So we talked about the rim protecting and what it adds to. What kind of player is Arkansas getting here with Brazile as far as the dynamic and how it will fit in with this team that Eric Musselman's putting together, and assuming Jalen Williams comes back?
Yeah, that could be one interesting element of it. And Jalen Williams was certainly kind of the big man to be able to have a dynamic for that Arkansas team last year. And obviously Musselman has been adding 5-star recruits like they're going out of style right now. And so for Brazile, I think he's a guy who certainly has the talent to be a starter. But then again, with all the talent that Arkansas is adding, he could be someone that gives you a spark off the bench, at least early on in his career. He's only going to be a sophomore next year. And so I think, depending on kind of the way the rest of the roster shakes out with Jalen Williams certainly being a factor in that, he could play a relatively similar role to that, but he also could be a small forward guy that that gets outside a little bit and is able to do some really good things defensively. The defensive intensity in particular, I think, that he brought from Missouri, even if he wasn't piling on the points right away as a freshman, was something that I think Tigers fans really appreciated. And so you're going to get a good defender. You're going to get a guy that likes to get out and block shots. And I think only as he grows, he's going to be able to do more things for you guys.
Yeah, he went from 6'7" in high school to 6'9" in Columbia. Maybe there's a chance he's still growing, which Arkansas fans would love to see that. We're talking with Brendan Schaefer here on the Morning Rush, covers the Cardinals for KMOV, also host of The Big Show. Now, you referenced Dennis Gates, a plethora of coaches hired in the offseason, and 4 of the 5 or 5 of the 6 are non-power 5s. So I wonder, seeing how back-to-back years where only one program makes the Elite Eight, the Arkansas Razorbacks, and just your thoughts on the coaching transition that we've seen, because they kind of went the first go-around, they went a bunch of Power 5 and experience. This time it looks like they're trying to use the Hunter Yurachek philosophy and find that next group of 5 Eric Musselman.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a strategy that other programs have noticed has been successful at certain places, Arkansas certainly being an example of that. I think in Missouri's case, it was kind of just the state of the program and where things were. You weren't maybe going to find that Power 5 coach to come to your job given the state of things. And so for Missouri, I think it made a lot of sense. But you look around the league, and with the exception of Mike White going from Florida to Georgia, which was crazy in and of itself, you get a lot of those programs that decided that the next up-and-coming coach maybe going after that guy now, and even though he may not have that Power 5 or Power 6 head coaching experience, now's the time to try and pick that guy up so that you can potentially lay a foundation for the long run, the way Arkansas has certainly done. So I think it's a very interesting trend. I'm intrigued to see kind of how it works out. It seemed like a coach a day was being hired by an SEC program from either an NCAA tournament team or at least a mid-major team that was getting their coach poached away. And, you kind of maybe had an internal rankings of, well, I hope we could get this guy or that guy. But at the end of the day, years are going to go by, and we're going to see which programs really nailed the hire in this cycle. But I think it's going to have ramifications on the SEC for years to come, for sure.
Now, we brought up those coaching hires and also mentioned how Arkansas back-to-back times has been the longest team in the NCAA tournament. When you look at the rest of college basketball, Brendan, relative to the Southeastern Conference, do you think we overrate this conference a little bit based on just where we are and what we have to talk about every day?
Honestly, that's a really good question, because I felt like during the season it was a pretty strong conference, at least at the top. And then I figured, well, teams like Texas A&M, they kind of slide down the board, but then you see the run they make in the SEC tournament against some really good teams. And so you start to think, well, maybe this conference is deeper than maybe we gave it credit for. But then again, you talked about Arkansas being the only team to have some recent NCAA tournament success, but I don't think that diminishes the team that Kentucky was this year, or that Tennessee or Auburn was this year. I think those teams were legitimately good on a national landscape and maybe just weren't able to get it done when it came to the NCAA tournament this time around. And then like the ACC, for instance, I didn't think that was a very deep league at all. And so sometimes I think you get into the NCAA tournament and that sort of might overweigh what our opinions ought to have been about a conference throughout the season. But I still think the SEC was probably a better league than the ACC this year, despite them getting 3 teams in the Elite Eight and the SEC only getting Arkansas. So sometimes it ends up being a crapshoot toward the end. But I don't know, guys. I think Arkansas has just done a really good job in doing a difficult thing to be able to make some tournament runs and kind of parlay that regular season success into the postseason, whereas recently the other SEC programs just haven't been able to get it done.
Brendan, let's shift gears a little bit. You're in St. Louis. You cover the Missouri Tigers. You also talk about the St. Louis Cardinals, and it seems like every Major League Baseball franchise is trying to create some kind of great PR move or good sentiment after what happened to the offseason with the doubt about it, or certainly getting the season started late. I don't think you can top bringing Albert Pujols back to St. Louis as far as number one PR move. This has been a great level of excitement, I know, for fans, not just in Missouri, not just in St. Louis, but I know my entire family is fired up about getting to see Albert play one more year in St. Louis.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to beat that one, isn't it? And the Cardinals had that opportunity right out before them with Albert being a free agent, saying he still wants to continue playing. Of course, he's kind of chasing that 700 home run mark. He needs 21. He hit 17 last year. It might be a little bit tough to do. But regardless, I think you're going to see fans from around the region, really, that are Cardinals in Cardinals country. People are going to want to make their way to St. Louis. People are going to want to get their chance to see Albert. Those who remember the amazing 11 years that he had in St. Louis before leaving for Los Angeles. So great PR move, definitely. And it'll be interesting to see the way in which maybe Albert can actually help this team on the field. I think the fact that the designated hitter is now in the National League is really what sealed the deal, and the Cardinals feeling like this was a move they could make, because you wouldn't want to bring in Albert if you weren't going to be able to give him some at-bats and put him in front of the fan base. But now at age 42, I think he profiles much better as a guy who can be your designated hitter pretty much every day against left-handed pitching, and they'll mix him in against right-handed pitching as well, and hopefully see if he's got some magic left in the tank for the St. Louis fans.
How many days do you think he gets to take the field at first base this year?
Oh, that's a great question. And, I mean, Goldschmidt is such a good defensive first baseman. He won the Gold Glove last year, and he's a guy who's really an Iron Man in an age where we really don't see that very often anymore in the game. So I kind of thought internally, maybe once every couple of weeks, but it could even be less than that. I think in September, though, depending on the state of the pennant race, you may get to see him out there just a couple more times extra, just because the fans are going to enjoy seeing that, I think. And he's certainly not as fleet of foot as he once was, but I would say maybe a couple times a month is probably the max.
I know, speaking of September, we tried to scoop up some tickets for that last weekend, be there maybe when he was going to maybe tip his cap for the last time. I think it's the Pirates. Lower level tickets were well over $300 for one game just for that. So that kind of gauges the level of excitement across Cardinal country for getting to see Albert and perhaps his last game before he'll certainly be one of the Redcoats for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I don't think there's any secret. And it's kind of funny, too, if you had thought about it and thought, I hear this Albert stuff, and maybe tried to get ahead of the game, you might have been able to score yourself a really nice deal. But at this point in time, like I said, it's an open secret, and the secret is out. Folks are going to be really excited to see him. Hopefully, just from a health perspective and a longevity and durability perspective, Albert is able to navigate this season. And he's talked about in the press conference down in Jupiter that his body is in a good spot right now, and he's in good shape. And the rigors of 162 are definitely probably going to take a toll on a 42-year-old player. But the fact that he can DH most of the time, I think that's going to help him, and I think he's going to be able to be moderately productive for the Cardinals, and the fans are going to love to see him, and that's going to be the biggest part.
All right, last one of the Cardinals. What is the expectation within the division? Obviously there's change with the skipper and all of this going into this year, because just making the playoffs is not the standard anymore with the expanded playoffs and certainly what the Cardinals expect.
Yeah, and that's a difficult thing, because the Cardinals certainly want to be in the playoffs. That's number one. But from there, they haven't had that success recently to be able to navigate October the way they had so successfully for years previously. And so to be able to get yourselves into the tournament and be able to put yourselves in a good position with your pitching to line up and be able to get yourselves to advance, that's going to have to be the goal for the Cardinals. Offensively, I think you're going to have to take a step forward if you want to be able to do that, because in the recent years that they've been knocked out of the playoffs, it's been because the bats just kind of go to sleep. And so you got to have a little bit of everything. The Jack Flaherty injury to start this season obviously doesn't help their case, but ideally you get him back at some point in the middle of the season, and then when you get into a playoff scenario, as the Cardinals certainly expect to be, you have an Adam Wainwright still going, you have a Jack Flaherty, and some other good arms to hopefully be able to throw out of series and be able to advance. And fans in St. Louis definitely feel long overdue for a World Series, so that's got to be the goal for the Cardinals this year.
Brendan Schaefer covering the Cardinals for KMOV, also hosts The Big Show. Brendan, appreciate you getting up early with us this morning. Thanks for your insight on Albert Pujols, the Cardinals, and Trevor Brazile. And hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to you when Arkansas takes on Missouri in football this upcoming season.
That sounds good, guys, and you were very friendly. You took it easy on my poor soul. It was a tough day yesterday, but you guys will enjoy a really solid player for sure.
Well, we may need a solid recommendation where to eat on the hill sometimes. We need to keep you in our friend circle here.
Hey, that sounds good, gentlemen. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Some of the best Italian food you'll eat will be in St. Louis, of all places.
Finally here, the top teams in college basketball have been determined, and the Final Four is set. Looking to wager on these games or the national championship? Head over to betonline.ag on your desktop or your mobile device and sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BLEAV to get started. That's BLEAV. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all your updated odds and info, along with player props and new contests throughout the year. It's the best source for all your sporting wagering needs, including live betting and everyone's favorite Vegas casino and poker games. It's super easy to get started, so join today. Learn why everyone is saying BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on sports. BetOnline, where the game starts.